is. Okay. There we go. I think we're recording. Yep. Looks like we're recording. Okay. All right. So what's the question?
So when we calculate the effect size for ANOVAs, like, you know, the Greek n squared, we don't have to say whether it's a small, medium, or large effect, right? Or do we? Because it wasn't included in the example. So I was like, do we include it in our conclusion or no?
What do you mean in the example? Oh, that's right. In the sample. Yeah. It's always good practice to actually put that in there. I don't remember if does the book actually tell you what's small, medium, and large for partial eta squared, for eta squared? Does it tell you?
I don't think so.
I think
it was for R. Oh, okay.
Oh, hi, Evelyn.
Oh, hi.
You just popped in. Yeah, I don't remember it being in here. Hold on, let me double check and see, because I don't remember them having that.
Maybe I mistaken it for the R one.
Yeah, R squared is definitely in there.
Mm-hmm.
That I know. But I don't remember seeing. Where's that at? Yeah. I don't see it.
Okay. No problem.
For ANOVAs, I don't think it is in here.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have a table like
Cohen's D and all that.
Cohen's D and R squared had a little table that told you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, don't worry about it for the ANOVA.
And then for I know for the exam 4 we don't have chapter 15, but for the final we don't have chapter 15 either.
No, there is chapter 15 is going to be on the final and on the exam 4.
In module 4 it doesn't show any 15.
Yeah, it does, and it says
because it's actually in the PowerPoint and in the videos, the lecture video.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So if you watch the lecture videos, yes, I talk about chapter 15.
Okay, so it is in there.
Chapter 14 videos.
Oh, okay, because I'm going to be done with viewing the ANOVA hypothesis testing example and then start chapter 14. That's why I was like, is there no 15?
Yeah, no. It's actually on, it's the last video for chapter 14.
Oh, I didn't watch that. That makes sense.
If you didn't watch the video, yep, you're right.
just that last one. I didn't watch that. Everything else.
Yeah, okay. It's in there. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's not a lot to really know. You don't need to know the calculations for chi-square. I just want you to understand conceptually what is the chi-square, what's it used for, right? Yeah.
And then I was having trouble understanding the quasi-independent variable, even though I watched the video and read the book. It was just one of those things that wasn't
what?
The quasi-independent variable.
Quasi-independent variable.
I think like quasi, if that.
Oh, quasi. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm sorry.
Quasi-experimental?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
Okay, what is it that you're not understanding?
It's like, what's the difference between quasi-independent variable and then the independent variable?
Well, the independent variable, you're supposed to be able to manipulate it, right?
Right.
Is this from is this actually from your study guide? Are you asking questions about the study guide?
No, I'm asking questions from the slides, directly from the slides.
From the slides? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just checking. Because I did post the study guide for the final.
Yeah.
So the difference between the two is one is manipulated and the other is not.
Oh, okay, but what's the purpose of it?
What do you mean?
Like, why is there a quasi? Why is it not a control variable? Why is there a quasi-independent variable?
Well, quasi, it's not. Basically, what it is that it's something that's in the study that you were not able to really manipulate. You're using it as an independent variable, but it's something that you're not really able to manipulate. So, for example, and I think I talked about this at the beginning of the semester, at the beginning of the session in chapter 1. Was it chapter 1 or chapter? I don't remember.
I think it was between, I think either chapter 1 or chapter 4, because I remember you talked about it.
I talked about this. It's in the
maybe I'll go back and get a refresher.
Yeah, I talked about this.
Okay.
So it's basically where you have one group of individuals where you're interested in, I don't know, say, for example, like smoking behaviors. All right, I'll say that you want to see whether or not smoking affects somebody's sleep or something. Okay, so basically, you're going to have a group of smokers and you're going to have a group of non-smokers. That's your independent variable, but you're not really manipulating smoking behaviors. You can't randomly assign. You can't just basically pick people and put them into the smoking group, because that would be unethical.
Yeah.
Right? You say, okay, you group of people over here, yeah, you know what? You guys are going to start smoking for me. No, you can't do that. Basically what it is people come to you as is, right? And that's what makes it a quasi.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
After module 3, module 4 was easier. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad. That's awesome.
Module 3 was a lot. I was like,
I know. That was like, oh my God, I felt so bad. It was so much information.
On one of the on the exam professor, on one of the ones where the formulas where we had to do, I forget what chapter it was, but I know it was like independent or dependent, something like that, but it was about 2 samples. I took almost a whole hour on the whole problem, professor, and I was like,
oh no.
Just because I wanted to make sure that I did it correctly, but everything else I did like in time.
Yeah.
But I knew when like I read that problem, when it said compare the 2, I was like, I'm gonna come back to this or do it first and then go on, because I was like, I do not want to have an empty.
For me, I kept forgetting to do the 95% confident interval. Like I almost forgot to do that every single time. And I'm like, thank God I remembered.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, good. I'm glad you remembered. That's awesome. The other thing too, it's also good to have like the sample, your labs, especially if you work them out, and also, the answers, and then especially for the APA wording.
Yeah, that's what I use it for.
I had my lab open, and I was like, thank God I have this open, because if I did not, I'd be screwed.
Yep, exactly.
No, because
all of this is going to come back for the final. So all of it is coming back.
I was going to like open, because I think I forgot to open like something, like one of the PowerPoint slides. So I typed in Canvas during like the test, but then it exited me out of the test, and then Proctorio was like, oops, sorry for exiting you. And then they sent me back in because they made sure that I wasn't cheating. And I was like, I wasn't cheating.
Oh my God, that scared me. I remember I was clicking to put like the insert math editor, and then the thick screen popped up. It says, do you want to exit? And I was like, God,
no.
I was like, please, because I couldn't finish this test. So I had to press exit, and I was like, please, please, please. And it took me back to the test. And I was like,
oh, good. I'm glad. That's good. Yeah.
And professor, update, the math editor finally worked. It was this screen size. It was the size of the screen that was affecting the math editor from working. So when I got a bigger computer, it started working again. So
Are
I
you
didn't have time in this test.
No way.
Yeah, it was the size of the screen for sure. Because I got a different computer with the same size with the same exact things that I had open for this one. So
was it an older computer?
No.
That you were using?
No, this was actually more recent than the computer I used for the test.
Really? So did you use like a desktop with a?
No, it was just because my personal laptop is like slightly smaller, and like I had to use my dad's laptop, which was like a little wider.
and that worked better.
Yeah, so I feel like for the next year people, maybe you should, I don't know, like just to like for them, so like it doesn't stop working for them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, people will watch this review session, and hopefully they'll hear that.
Yeah,
could be one of the issues. Yeah. The other thing too that Canvas tech support told me was one of the things that they recommend students do is to clear their cache and their cookies. So that's one of the things. But if it's not your computer, you know, if you're using someone else's computer, you may not want to do that.
Yeah.
That basically gets rid of all of their all of their cookies, all of, you know, if they saved any passwords and all that stuff, it totally messes everything up. So
wait, I have the same calculator as you.
If it's your own computer, then yeah, you can go ahead and clear all of your all of that stuff. But if it's not your computer, I would not recommend that.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that he recommended. And also the other thing too is I think the pop-up blocker is another one, and then making sure that you're using Google Chrome, and I guess now making sure that you have the right size, a large enough screen, I guess.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Oh, Professor, I wanted to ask you on...
Sure. What's up?
I'm going to look at my exam, because I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
Let me go to my exam.
Sure.
I'm going to have to go for now, but I'll look at this review session later. Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
You're welcome, Anil. Thank you.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so on question 33, it says, for an experiment comparing two treatment conditions, a related sample design would be, and I was looking at the PowerPoints, and it said different scores for each participant, and then independent would be raw scores, correct? Or am I incorrect?
Correct.
Okay, well, it said I marked it. It said that I was wrong in that one on question 33.
Oh, wait a minute. What was the question that you're asking?
For an experiment comparing two treatment conditions, a related sample design would obtain blank scores for each.
The number. It needs a number. How many scores?
Oh, I put difference. I was reading the PowerPoint, and I was like, it has to be that.
How many scores?
And I can't remember, Professor, because all the writing. But I put different scores for each participant. So should it have been raw scores for each participant? See, I couldn't find that one in the notes, and I was like, so I went back to.
This was conceptual. This was looking at the data. So when you're actually collecting the data, right, your participants, if you've got a related samples, how many scores do you get per participant?
I don't know. Let me go back in my notes because so much notes, Professor.
Well, I mean, think about it. A related samples is what? What are you doing? You're doing a pre and a post, right? So how many scores are you collecting?
2.
Yeah. And then for an independent samples,
you're creating.
How many scores are you collecting per participant? No, not 2. No, because remember you're looking at between groups, right? So these are students, not students, but these are participants, right? They're not related to each other at all. These are independent groups, right? So there's one participant and one score.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, when I was looking at the notes, I just saw it and I was like, it has to be this, because I couldn't think, because I was like, it was like the last like 3 or 4 minutes, and I was like, it has to be this, but that makes more sense.
Yeah. Yep. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi.
Did you have any questions?
Not really. I just wanted to hear. I think I've got the answers aren't up yet, so I don't know if I got everything right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna actually. Let me just go ahead and do it now.
Because I'll know that I have questions, but I think I've got it. These somehow feel more straightforward.
Right? Yeah, everybody's saying that. Everyone's like, "Oh my God!" After last, after last week.
Exactly. Yeah.
Last week was insane.
It's hard. Yeah.
So
I think chi-square stuff is interesting just because there's so little material in the lecture, but I do trust that if that's all you want us to know about it, then great, that's what we know. Is there any more we need to focus on?
For the next exam?
For chi-squared problems?
Well, again, remember that the learning outcomes, right, in the module, it tells you exactly what it is that you need to know for the test. And so I always say, you know what, look at the learning outcomes, take a look at the learning objectives, make sure that you know those, and you should be fine. Yeah. Because I didn't want to overburden, especially with the last week, because there's also the final on Saturday. So I didn't want to give you guys like a huge lab. So this was a little less. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was able to do the calculations for an ANOVA and correlation and regression. That was like the biggest thing. And then a couple of questions here and there about the, just like multiple choice questions. So, yeah, this is not as big of a lab as I've done in the past.
Professor, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Another one that I got wrong was question 13. It says the power of a hypothesis test is a probability that the test will blank. And I looked back at my notes, and I don't know if I just read it wrong, but I put fail to reject HO the null if there is no effect, which it says I was wrong, and I was wondering if you could help me clarify it so I could
well, what is power?
Let me see. Power, I have it here. The probability of correctly rejecting a false null hypothesis.
Yeah. The answer you put down is wrong. Power is the probability of correctly rejecting a false null. So make the right decision, right?
So I put, that's where I got confused because I was like, it's false. I was like, how is that?
No.
It makes so much more sense, Professor. I wish, you said,
now looking back, it always does. It always does.
Are we reviewing the last exam?
That's what Evelyn is asking questions about the last exam. Yeah,
that's great because I had one that I just I was like, got it, because I changed it at the last second, and I wonder if I had it right first.
Okay. It was question which number? Which one was
21. It says when the null hypothesis is true, the t-statistic will have a value greater than 1.96, cannot be determined, close to 0, and around 1. 0. I at first had it as close to 0. Yeah, and then I changed it to cannot be determined. I know.
Never change your answers.
I know, but I tripped myself out because I was like, well, the alpha level is important. And what if, but an alpha level would never allow it to be close to 0.
Well, right? Actually, yes, it could. Yeah, it totally could. Because remember, if you're going to fail to reject, right? If you're going to fail to reject the null, then the t-statistic is going to be close, because it's not always going to be reject the null, right? You're going to get situations where you're going to get a sample that is just like the population, right? And so you're not going to find any differences. And so yeah, that t-statistic that you're going to get is going to be close to 0, which means you're going to fail to reject the null,
even though it's close to 0.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Is it's supposed to be close to 0. It's just like the z.
Oh, right.
Right, because the means, when you look at the distribution, right, the t is the mean, right? The mean is 0, right?
Right. So if we're going to, when the null hypothesis is true, the t-statistic will have a value close to 0 just because it's close to the mean. Mm-hmm. And even if, because the reason I chose at the last second needs more information was because what if there was a really big alpha level? Would that ever happen, an alpha level greater than 0.05?
Not usually. Well, some actually do 0.10. But even that, I mean,
it wouldn't be close to it. if we were going to?
It depends on, you stop and think of, I'm trying to think of an example. I'd have to actually take a look and actually work something out to actually show you, why that isn't possible, or why the T statistic. When you actually, if you look at the T distribution table, right, you can see that the T critical values, they get larger, right? They get larger. They start out small and then they get larger and larger, right? So you start out close to 0 and then they get further and further away from 0, right?
Right.
And so what that is telling us is that as n increases, or as alpha decreases, then our T critical value gets further out in the tail.
Yeah. I got it. I think I got it. I was just wrong.
I'm sorry, you shouldn't have changed that one. You were right.
I know. It's okay. Lessons learned. I mean, I'm like really learning statistics in this class. I'm really learning it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm really excited for that.
What I think is cool, Professor, is like the fact that, like, yes, even though it's condensed in 5 weeks, we have the option like to go back and look because it's the 6th month. And I feel like that's amazing for me just because how I'm taking Psych 74.
You're going to take research methods? Oh my gosh. Yay.
Yeah. Well, I have
all going to come together.
Yeah, because like to get my ADT in psychology.
Yep.
So
you're going to be putting all of this to work.
I was like, thank God it's the 6 months because I have to look back.
Yeah, you're gonna need all of this stuff. Yeah, for that research methods class, because you're gonna be doing exactly what we're doing. Well, you're gonna go from start to finish, right? You're gonna go from generating a research question, whittling it down to a hypothesis, and then putting together the proposal, and then running your study, and then analyzing that data, and then doing the poster presentation. It'll be intense.
I feel like it is, but I can push through.
It will be.
Yeah.
But you'll have 15 weeks to get it done in.
Yes,
so.
not 5.
Not 5. Yeah, exactly.
Another question that I had is said, for which of the following situations would a related sample design be appropriate? I put comparing self-esteem for students who participate in school athletics versus those who don't, but it said I was wrong.
Right. So those are 2 separate groups, right? Those are independent groups. Those are 2 separate groups. A student cannot be in both of the groups.
Oh,
related samples is that it's the same participant that's being looked at over 2 conditions.
So would it have been comparing pain tolerance without acupuncture needles, with and without acupuncture needles? Wow.
I think so, yeah.
I was looking at that and I was like, no.
Without looking at the exam, yeah, I think that's
it's so like when it's getting down to like the last 5 minutes, it says like when it pops up, it says you have 5 minutes left. I'm like, crap.
You got to be watching your time. Exam 4, I'm not sure. I don't remember. Because you guys will be. There's 2.5 hours. Oh, hi. Hi, Pastor. I think you'll have enough time. I put in like 2.5 hours. It's the final exam is the one that always worries me, is because it's actually going to be 3 hours. So you'll have 3 hours to get it completed, but there's a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of multiple choice, and then there's a lot of calculations and all that stuff.
Could we like
I've said with the other review sessions, do the calculations first, especially the ones that and get them done as quickly as possible, and then move on. Just go through and move on. Just it's a matter of going through and moving on.
Oh, it was question 35, where it said about exercise and control. That's the one I took the longest on.
I think that's the one with the 2 groups.
Yeah, because it said this is
that
where
one shouldn't have been that long.
Oh, because
gave you, it was equal ends. So you didn't have to even do, you just go straight into doing the standard error instead of figuring out what the pooled variance was.
Oh, because I think I confused myself with when it said compare the two groups. So I was like, wait, I was reading it like carefully, and I was like, okay, it says control groups, but then it said, what about the other group? And I was like, okay, so I have to do both groups, and that's when I just started like plugging it in last minute. But
okay, you're trying to figure out what kind of test to run.
Mm-hmm.
But when you saw that, it should have, remember and I had an example just like this on the lab, right? So that should have highlighted for you, okay, this is exactly like the independent samples that I did on the lab, right? Mm-hmm. So going back to the lab, looking at what you did there should have helped you with the exam.
Well, this is the thing, Professor. I was doing good with the lab, and then 13, I don't know what I did wrong. So I was like, I can't depend on 13. The one that was like this, I was like, I looked at the notes.
You had issues with it?
Yeah, so I looked at the notes, and I was like, okay. So, like, majority of it, I feel like I did good. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But,
good. Well, I am going to be grading those. That's the next thing on my agenda. I provided feedback on discussion 4. I've got to go back and take a look if anyone has posted anything else, but that was one of the things with discussion 4. If you didn't post a journal article that describes an experiment, then you're not going to get credit for that discussion. So I need to make sure that everybody's actually uploading or linking up journal articles that are actually about experiments and not correlational studies. So
I wanted to ask you about that because you were looking at that.
I did. I looked at it at everybody's that turned it in as of yesterday, I think it was.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that because I did a quasi experiment. So does that count?
Did you look at the comments? Did you go back into the discussion? Because I didn't have any comments. I put in into the discussion. I replied to everybody that put a study in, and so if you did if it was correct, I put something like great article or interesting or whatever, and then you're fine. But if I put in there, this is a correlational study or this is not an experiment, then you have to go back in there and go back into your original post and upload a different article that actually does, because the whole purpose of this is, the reason why I'm having you do this is that I want you to understand the difference between a correlational study and an experiment, right? So how do you know? How can you tell, right? And again, it's understanding that there's an independent variable, dependent variable, that there are there's an experimental group and a control group, right? There's a manipulation that's happening. So one group is getting something and another group is not, right? And so these are all, and that'll be in the methods section, typically is where you can see that. Usually from the abstract, I can tell because I've looked at these so long, I know what to look for just in the abstract, but maybe for students who are just starting out, it's good to go to the actual methods section and read that to see, is there a manipulation? If there is no manipulation, if all they're doing is collecting data from a survey, then that is not an experiment. Right?
Okay,
because that's it. Then that cannot count as an experiment.
Yeah, because I posted mine, but you didn't comment on it, so I was like, okay, then I'm.
Yeah, I did. When did you post it?
I posted it Friday, and it was
I would have put a comment on it. It's not in the grades. It's actually in the discussion itself.
Oh yeah, that's why there's no comment. Like I've seen other people where you're like, it's a correlational study, but on mine, Professor, there was no comment, so I was assuming I'm okay because mine was.
Yours is on Friday.
Yeah, because mine was based on pregnant people with like if children have ammonia, and ammonia, is it? I can't remember.
I'm trying to go to yours. Here we go. Here it is.
And the independent
It's a quasi-experimental. Oh, did I miss yours? Uh-oh. I might have skipped it. Oh, dear. Sorry about that.
That's okay, Professor. I know you're busy, so it's fine.
Well, no, I was going through all of them, and I missed yours, and now I feel terrible. Oh, no. Yours, let me see. Did they do anything? Let me see the methods. It's an intervention. Yeah, this is an experiment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's quasi-experimental because they're pregnant. You can't make someone be pregnant.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Right? That's where Anil was asking about, quasi-independent variable. Yeah, pregnancy would be one of those quasi-independent variables, right? Because you can't make people be pregnant.
Okay.
So yeah, so yours is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yours is fine. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, because like the last two, I thought I was doing good, and then when you're like, no, it was this, I was like, oh, I should have asked when I was doing when we were doing this. I could have redid it, but it's fine. That's all. I was like, I want to make sure this one's like the right way that you're supposed to do it compared to the other two discussions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this is good. This is perfect.
Hey, I have a question now for the lab, which is exciting.
Which one? What do you mean?
I have for lab.
5?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am going through the answers right now, and I'm looking at them. So I have the numbers I have the numbers great, which feels good. So I'm happy about that. But I used different language in the answer to number 9. You have it that it's between as mood rating increases, calories consumed decrease. And I said in mine, as calories per day increase, mood rating decreases. So I had it opposite to yours.
Mm-hmm.
Do they need
a negative relationship, right?
Does the X need to be first and the Y second, or are you just describing the relationship whether you do X first? You know what I mean?
Usually the rule of thumb is the X value, right? Okay. Whatever you think is the independent variable, because really in correlational studies, technically it's not really. I mean, there is no X.
Well, one's not independent, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So,
okay. So if I said
what makes sense, right? But what is it that makes sense, right?
If I said as calories per day increase, mood
what
rating.
Is it that the researchers are thinking? Are they saying that the mood ratings is what's causing the calories to be consumed?
Okay.
Right? Then that would be
for the coefficient between mood rating and calories. So they're asking for mood first.
Okay.
So I would be correct to say as mood rating
increases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you can also say it the other way too. I mean.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't like a philosophical logic around it. There was
there actually is. If the researcher is thinking that it's the mood ratings that's mm-hmm. causing the more calories to be consumed, then yeah, you would want to put that first. Mm-hmm. Right? So it really depends on what it is that the researchers thinking causes that.
Okay.
Right. So.
Yeah, they say the question states mood before eating both times. So I think that's.
But I don't think I put. What did I write?
It doesn't seem super particular, but I understand what you're saying. If there is a clear factor that they're more focused on, then to highlight that factor first. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, this researcher, this health psychologist, is basically saying, it's not. She's not saying which one of these causes the other. Sure. So in this case, it doesn't matter which one goes first.
Okay, cool. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. That's the only question?
Nice. That was it. My numbers are right.
Yes! Good. That's exciting. I love it when the numbers come out. Oh, yeah. And by the way, I don't know if you all are getting my announcements or reading my announcements, but there was a mistake on the ANOVA example. Did everyone get that, I hope? I didn't want to I need to redo that that video so that I correct it, but it was just I put it in when I was working it out, I put the number as a 40. It should have been a 20, but when you calculate it out, it's actually as if I calculated with a 20, which is weird, but yeah. So that was in step 3B, I think it was, in the ANOVA example. I'm gonna redo the video, but between now and the test, I wanted to make sure that that was clear for everybody, that was an error that I had made. Just don't you guys make that mistake.
Yeah, I saw the announcement. You're like, oh, it was supposed to be this, and I was like, okay. I took a screenshot just to because we have so much announcements. I was like, I want to go back.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, Professor. Just again, because it's so much, like you said. So it's like,
and this is the final week too. It's like, oh my god.
I was like, it's the final week. Like,
this is it.
This is it, and I'm like I've done so much where I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do it, but I'm like, I have to.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
All right. Hi, everyone. Between test-wise and experiments-wise.
Oh, don't worry about that.
Is just, oh, yeah?
Yeah, don't worry about that.
We don't have to know.
Yeah, I'm not testing
either.
No. Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah, that's getting into the more technical, more technical aspects of ANOVAs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's like we can talk about it offline if you want.
Oh, well, not necessarily.
She's like, nope, don't want to know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent.
Anything to say about eta squared? Just any pointers for us for keeping it connected to the other measurements? So, like all the other tests, we have our post measurements, and it is a little hard for me to keep organized what they all do, Cohen's and R squared, and when I have to describe it with words, I'm like, I don't know, but I know the
eta squared is actually is similar to R squared.
Okay.
It's the same idea. It's actually measuring the percentage of variability that's explained by that manipulation by the independent variable, right? So it's the same idea as R squared. Okay. It's partial eta squared. So if you think of those two, they're really similar.
The amount of variability caused by the presence of that independent variable.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, that's basically what it is when you talk about R squared.
Is that different from Cohen's d? What Cohen's d is measuring?
Yeah, Cohen's d actually measures the magnitude of the difference. So how different are your means, right? Yeah. So one is looking at the magnitude of the difference, and the other one is looking at the percentage of variability.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah. So those are the two. Those are the two differences between the eta squared, R squared, and then Cohen's d. Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to depend on the journal that you write or that you read, which one is more widely accepted. So you'll notice when you're reading journal articles that certain journals will report out R squared, or certain journals will report out Cohen's d.
Okay.
So yeah, it depends on the field. Yeah.
Do we have to know the other one that you said?
Which one? Eta squared?
Yeah.
You'll need if your F statistic is large, right? So if you're rejecting the null hypothesis when you're doing the ANOVA, then you will need to calculate an eta squared, right? Because that's the effect size for the ANOVA test. Because remember, whenever you reject the null hypothesis, you always have to provide some kind of evidence or some kind of measurement of just how much of a difference are we talking about, right? That is true for all the tests, right? Because remember, we really do want to know do we need to care about this difference, right? Is it a large enough difference that, yeah, if someone were to replicate this, right, is it going to come up as different again, right?
I don't know why it keeps getting cut off, but
yeah, you're cutting off too, so I'm not sure. Is your internet working okay? Are they down?
I don't know why it took so long. So is that called ETA?
ETA squared. ETA. ETA.
Oh, ETA. Good.
Yeah, it's that N. It's that Greek cursive N. It's
N squared.
But it's ETA.
Oh,
it's not N.
ETA.
It's not N. It's ETA.
Okay, sorry, because you kept going out and in. I'm like, what's ETA?
ETA.
Yes, you said that in mind. I was successful in doing that. Okay, good. Woo.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, similar with the coefficient of determination, a similar question with ETA squared, just like, I think I'm still wrapping my mind around what it represents actually, and would you mind just talking about it a little bit so I can try and understand better what it's representing in the calculation?
For this particular class, we're not really getting into the specifics of the coefficient.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So.
You just know how to calculate it and that's it.
Yeah.
I can do that. Pretty easy actually to calculate that one.
I know, yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, this is a piece of cake.
Cool, good to know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, I think I'm there, so thank you so much, everybody.
Oh, you're welcome.
Bye.
Good luck with the test. Cool.
Yeah, Professor, this helps so much. Like,
good. I'm glad.
Going and reviewing it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
For discussion 5, part 2, we have to just do another journal article review. Like
no, the same article.
Oh, the same article.
Same article. Yeah. That's why discussion 4 is so important.
Okay.
Is I want to make sure that everybody actually gets the article. Whoa. What was that? Yikes. I just want to make sure that everyone gets the article, the correct article for discussion number 4, because you're going to use the same article for discussion number 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You don't have to look for something different. You're just going to use the same exact one. And the other thing too is, as you're responding to other students, make sure that you're responding and that their articles are correct, right? So don't, I want to make sure that they're actually doing experiments, right? And so you're supposed to go in and actually read those articles, right? So you're supposed to find one other classmate and read their article and then respond to what they say.
Oh yeah, I read Parasu's article. I found that really interesting. I was like, wow.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. You know what? There were some really cool articles. I was like, oh my God, these are really neat. I never would have guessed, right? Because yeah, they were really great. There were some really good ones.
Yeah, I thought what was interesting about her article was, like, they said, I can't remember because it was so much, but basically, like, in like simple terms, where like people are like they're more true selves just because like there's not like basically a facial interaction in front of them.
Yeah, the face-to-face versus the online setting. Yeah, that was and it was interesting how just what they found. So what would be interesting to actually take a look at is that one to take a look at. Okay, so how many participants did they use? Was it a small study? Was it a large study? And there's a lot of questions, that come up because it's an unusual result, right? That people were more comfortable. What was it? I think it was in the online or something. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I think it was online.
What's that?
I think it was the online one.
Yeah, the online.
58 participants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting. Yep. So yeah, so just make sure that you read through everybody's stuff, and yeah. So yeah.
Oh, Professor, I
Yes.
was actually asked on my discussion. I didn't get to post the link, but I updated it. I don't know if you got to go back and look at the link for that research. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat your question?
Oh, I said I don't know if you. I went back to go on my discussion to edit and post the link because I know I didn't post the link.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were able to get to it because I
Did you go back and post it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I edited the discussion so you can go back. You'd have to copy and paste the link.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
I'll go back and check that. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks. Yay. Cool. Yep.
So, Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
When it comes to the final exam, do you have like any references on like what formulas? Like, I know they're all important, but like which ones are like more like repeated, if that makes sense? Like, is there, or is it just one?
Yeah, it's just going to be everything that we've done.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything that you've done in the last 5 weeks is going to be there.
Okay. Because I feel like the last exam was like my worst exam. Like, it's not like horrible, but I would
So
have
if you
liked to
didn't
done.
do very well on that one, so my suggestion would be to make sure you understand the new material, but then go back and review where your gaps are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So go back and make sure that you know it. Go back over all the labs if you need to. Right. Go back over and redo the labs without looking at the answers and see if you can do them.
Yeah.
Just have them there and just go through them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do them, great.
Okay, Professor.
Yep.
Because like again, it wasn't like my worst exam. Like, it's not like horrible in my eyes. I don't think it's horrible, but I would have liked to done better.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, but you get a second chance at this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
At the final. That's the beauty of it, is that the final you get to prove, you get to show me, okay, did you get it the second time around? And if you did, great. That's awesome. That's what I want to see.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I do have a question about the study guide.
Sure.
So it said the word problems. Like, is that just like a reference of what we're gonna have to like read up again on?
Yeah,
or
the ones that you're gonna need to know about. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause when I was reading it, I was like, that doesn't make sense. I was like, so I'll ask.
Those are the calculations. So basically what it is that you're gonna get word problems where you're gonna have to calculate just like you did on the previous exams.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You got it.
Okay.
Yep. And don't forget that tomorrow office hours are not from 10 to 11:30. I have a meeting that I have to go to, so I had to reschedule them. So tomorrow's office hours are going to be from 5 to 6, I think 5 to 6:30.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, 5 to 6:30 was when the office hours are going to be for tomorrow.
Okay. I have another question, Professor. Do you think we'll have enough time in the final, like the 3 hours? Do you think that'll be more than enough time? Because you said there's...
If you know the material, yes. If you don't,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you know it, you're going to be fine. If you don't know it, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah, because again, like I use all your PowerPoints and I print them out and I write the notes. So like I'm just gonna like go back. But oh God, Professor, it's so much.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of stuff. You're right. You're very right. Yep.
I'm
Yep.
like
All right. Well, it's 7, so I'm gonna close this out unless there's any burning last-minute questions.
I don't think I have any last-minute questions. I think I'm...
All right, then. Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys have a great night. Have fun.
You too. Bye, Professor.
Bye. Good luck studying.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.